I'm sitting here like most mornings, staring at an IDE, talking to Claude Code, and I'm about to build a new app. And while I was doing this, I realized how I think AI coding will actually die. And it has to do with something I call problem spaces, world transformations, and functional animators. And that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. So let me just show you what I mean. Okay, so I'm actually working on Conductor Framework version 2.1, and you can see I just ran the initialization command. So now Claude has turned into my assistant that knows everything that's going on in this folder, and it says that the system is mapped, the brain is active, and it's ready for my commands. So the system's up and running. What I'm doing is I'm starting to build a new app. I don't have any code or anything in here yet. All I have is a Conductor Framework v2.1 that I'm working on. And one thing I realized with version 2, and you can go get this at testandprod.co for free. The link will be in the description. But one thing I realized is I built all of V2 to do work for you while you're already building something. But I built this new workflow called the Genesis workflow that helps you start building an app. And this is when I had this realization. So I started thinking, what you actually need to build an app. And I don't start thinking about technology at all anymore. I think of three things, or at least I boiled it down to three different things. So when you run the Genesis workflow, the first thing I do is I'm wanting to rebuild Obsidian essentially, because Obsidian and Notion and things like this, they drive me nuts. I'm a big Obsidian fan actually, but it's not good enough anymore because it's not smart. So, I have a bunch of different apps. I fix bikes and guitars. I batch cook. I try to keep, there's a lot of stuff that has to remember. And these note-taking apps like Obsidian and stuff just aren't smart. They don't know enough about my world or the things I'm interested in. And it makes me think too much when I'm using it. And today I had a syncing issue with it and I wanted to build something new. So it's what I'm going to do. But what I was just doing there is just kind of ranting. So the first thing that I have in the Genesis workflow is actually a problem space or a problem solar system. And I've designed the assistant to just go in and listen to my rant. And what it does is help me pull out the different problems and distill things down to a central problem, like an anchor problem, and then all the different problems that order it. And it takes me through that entire process. So I'm not going to talk about any of the technology. I'm not talking about the users or anything like that yet. I'm simply going through and having it pull this stuff out of my brain for me as my starting point. And that's step one in the Genesis workflow. And you might be asking yourself, if you've watched my channel before, like, your entire channel is about coding with AI and you're telling me it's dying. It is, and I'll explain here after I go through these three things. The next thing that the Genesis workflow does is it helps me build a world transformation. And what this is a detailed description of what my life is like right now with the current solutions I have, like, Roam Research, Obsidian, Notion, all these different note-taking apps. And I will clearly explain what my world looks like now with all the different problems that exist in it. And then create like a vision of what the world will be transformed into after we build whatever this solution is. So we're going through in step one, ranting and just having it listen to all my problems and break those down into anchor problem and satellite problems. Then I'm describing what my world looks like now with the current solutions and why that's bad. And then how I want my world to transform after we build whatever this solution is. I'm just calling it Notes Infinity right now. That name will change, I'm sure. And after we do that, after we make the world transformation, so all this stuff is being put into the Conductor framework itself while it's going through the Genesis workflow. So after you do this, it's populating the files and storing them for you. And it always knows what you're talking about after you run this initialization command. Anyway, on to step three. This is the kind of the system map. So it takes the problems, the worldview transformation, and it's going to make kind of a functional bridge, or what I call a functional animator. And what this is doing is not a user persona. I'm not a big fan of user personas, but it's literally going in and mapping through what functional jobs this app needs to do to animate or realize this positive worldview that we've just laid out, and it'll make an entire list of jobs that this solution needs to do. And that's it. That's the starting point for my app. And you can see how this really sets me up to have a great conversation about what type of technology I will actually need to use to build this app. But like I said, AI coding is dying, and let me explain how. So right now, if you're on X or listening to people like me, we're always talking about tools, and there's some degree of technical knowledge that you need to have. But what I've done right here with these three things is I'm just giving context. People call this context engineering, but the fact is that there's something in my brain, there's a worldview that I have that's going into the LLM's brain, and now it's stored there. So AI coding is dying because all this stuff that's going to happen for the next few days while I'm building out the first version of this is going to become increasingly inconsequential. So, right now I'm going to go through and I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of bugs I have to fix. I'm going to have to make technical decisions. I mean, I want these in markdown files and I want them on my computer and on the web. I have to figure out how to do that. But that's going to get easier and easier. All AI really needs to know in the future is what problems are you experiencing? And then it's going to spin up apps or different versions of apps and solutions for you. So knowing how to work an IDE like this or work in the terminal to build basic apps, you're just not going to need that anymore. So if you want to get ahead of that, you can start using a system like the Conductor Framework. And I'm trying to write as little amount as code as possible with this build just to get me out of my old habits and have AI do everything, not based on what I'm telling it to do, but based on the context it has and stuff like the Genesis workflow, in the skills that are stored in the AI brain, in the AI context that it has. I'm trying to just not write any code for this build and see how it does. But that's all for today. If you want to get the Conductor Framework, just go to testandprod.co. You can have it for free. If you get it, please give me feedback. Getting feedback is what made me make this change to put the Genesis workflow in there. So 2.1 will be coming out very soon, and I'll email all of you who already have version 2 and version 1, so you can just update to version 2.1, which will have the Genesis workflow and a few other workflows that I'm building. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.